With the U20 World Cup underway, Blue Lock's skill and performances have drastically improved since the new Egoist League. And with the NEL values and bids for each Blue Locker still being in effect, how have these values of each player changed since the new Egoist League? Which players have gone up and which have gone down? Well, in today's video, I'll be going through the performances of the Blue Lockers during the Nigeria game of the U20 World Cup, adjusting the player bid values based on their performances. Before getting into this video, spoiler warning for the latest events of the Blue Lock series up to the Nigeria game, and if you are not caught up, I would suggest clicking off this video now if you wish to not be spoiled. Starting off this video, it only feels fitting to start with our main character, Yoichi Isagi. Now, in my opinion, excluding a certain highlighted blonde dribbler, Isagi was the MVP of the Nigeria game. He was prominent not just in the midfield, but really was everywhere on the pitch during that match. According to Nigeria's analysis, Blue Lock were centered around Yoichi Isagi as one of the core pillars for their attacking patterns, alongside Karasu and Aiku. And with some good defensive plays and interceptions, Isagi was truly a pain to deal with. But that's not even counting two factors that would significantly contribute to his value. The first was his play and link up with Bachira at the start of the game. His one-touch pass fed the ball to Bachira, and his presence on the front line with Rin allowed for Bachira to get an opening to score. While you can argue about whether or not this should count as an assist or not, I think it is fitting to give Isagi some credit for setting this play up, not to mention avoiding Onazi, the ace player of Nigeria, in the process. As for his goal, this was a true turning point for him. Not only was it a goal at the final minute, but it was also a technique that Isagi just stole from Onazi in the previous play. And if we compare this goal to any of the previous ones that Isagi has scored, it is very different. Based on the consistency of Isagi with his plays in the midfield, along with his possible assist and final goal, I think he increased by a decent amount. Nigeria as a whole didn't really appear to be all that strong in my eyes. So to me, any play that occurred towards the later half of the game as Nigeria is continuously getting scored on and getting, I'm gonna be honest, decimated, are going to be valued a little bit less. You might view it differently, but that's just how I see it. Because of this, I believe that Yoichi Isagi's value has increased by 16 million, from 240 to 256 million. Following up, let's talk about Blue Lock's strongest striker, Rin Itoshi. Now, despite Rin being equal to Isagi in terms of bid values for the NEL, the increase from this game was not the same across both players. Because honestly, Rin did not do as much in this game as you might believe. He was a very strong presence in the opening chapter, dribbling around Nigeria's players and opening up the first shot against the African champions. But once that shot had gotten blocked by Onazi, Rin's presence in the first half wasn't really anything of substance. Aside from just being used as bait for both Reo and Bachira's link-ups, he wasn't really around much for those first 45 minutes. The second half, though, is where Rin shined, linking up with Isagi for some quick 1-2 decisive passes, successful dribbles down the pitch, and overall just existing as a huge threat to the Nigerian team. Although he did lose the ball to Obabonia, it did take 5 Nigerian players to stop Rin, so he's still kind of like that. He also managed to block Kuso's shot, which would have resulted in a goal due to Onazi baiting both Aryu and Aiku to mark him. But the main thing of value here for Rin is his goal against Nigeria. Now, I'm going to be kind of honest with you here. He did score, so he is going to increase. But the goal was a little bit crazy. This isn't like his other crash shoots where he forced his opponents to collide with him. He openly slid over Isagi's back to take the shot, stealing his goal, by the way. While it was still a goal, there are two things that I think are preventing him from increasing by a drastic amount. The first thing being the goal itself. It's another crash shoot goal, and Rin crashing into someone to score will only get him so much increase since his previous value was netted through other goals and attempts scored in the same way during the PXG match. And two, this goal was kind of detrimental to his own team here. He crashed into his own teammate to take that shot, which could have potentially resulted in not only injury for himself, but injury to his teammate. That's not even counting the potential loss of possession here if he happened to fail to score the goal here. I don't think club owners would be too kindly of Rin potentially injuring another player just for the sake of a goal. So for that, while he did score, it is going to impact his increase. Based on Rin's performances, I believe that his value would increase from 240 million to 251.5 million. Going into one of my favorite characters of the Blue Lock series and one who is getting a lot of tension as of late, let's talk about Mikage Reo. Reo going into this game had a lot to prove. He was assigned by Ego to become the master copy, he blocked his ex-boyfriend Nagi, and now he has to fight off the slander for his emotions at the end of the NEL, because God forbid a bro cry over his homie. As for this opening game though, Reo honestly really proved himself. His link-ups with Bachira showing off more variation to his copying arsenal, along with putting the fear of God into Kuso, was definitely something. Their link-ups and the use of Rin and Isagi led to a quick transition by Reo into a goal through the use of copying Chigiri's weapon. This to me was great for his value. It not only showed off more of his offensive capabilities when it comes to link-ups with his copy technique, but it further values his striker mentality that we got a peek of against Barcha. His ult value increased by 44 million thanks to his assist to Chigiri in the Barcha game and his goal against Toya. So this game was really just affirming his goal scoring capabilities. The only real negatives I have for Reo as it relates to this game were really related to his lack of presence in the second half, including the fact that the Reo and Bachira link-ups were eventually seen through and read, highlighting some predictability in that combination. And while you might think it's a little bit crazy, I think that Reo's value should have increased more than Rin during this game. It's much easier to grow in value when you start lower, so Reo being at 78 million versus Isagi and Rin being at 240 kind of makes sense. Because of this, I think Reo would increase his value from 78 million to 90 million. Before I continue the video, I have something very important to talk to you guys about. We all love sleep, right? Being able to dedicate 6 to 9 hours to become a motionless burrito while our brain runs a highlight reel of the weirdest possible dreams. It's the best, and it also really sucks when you don't get a good night's sleep. Well, I have the fix for you because this video is sponsored by Manta Sleep. Manta Sleep specializes in customizable sleep masks that feature unique removable foam eye cups. These eye cups help create a 100% blackout environment without applying pressure to the eyes, which is pretty beneficial for side sleepers and those who are sensitive to light. These masks are super breathable, which makes it really no issue when you have them on your face when you're, sleeping at night. Manta Sleep was even kind enough to send me their sound mask, which comes with all of the previous benefits that I just mentioned, but also built-in adjustable Bluetooth speakers. All you gotta do is move these blue tabs to fit your ear, and it gives you the best amount of comfort possible. And assuming you want to adjust the volume of whatever you're listening to, the face panel here can adjust the volume without you ever removing your mask. And assuming for whatever reason you don't want the face panel on your mask, it's Velcro, so you can just take it off. And if you're worried about the battery life of this mask for your Bluetooth needs, don't worry, because it has over 20 hours of battery life in a single charge. I really enjoy this mask, and don't just take my word for it, here's a word from another happy customer. If you want to enjoy a good night's sleep, Manta Sleep is here for you. Head on over to Manta Sleep's website using the link in the description and use the code AERO10 at checkout like it appears on screen, and you can save 10% off your entire order. That's not even including the 15% you save if you spend $99 or 20% if you spend $150. Thank you again to Manta Sleep for sponsoring today's video, and let's just jump right back into it. Going into our next character is someone that I've grown to appreciate a little bit more as of late. Let's talk about Karasu Tabito. Now, Karasu is a character that, like I said, I didn't really like too much. But with his performances in the PXG game, I slowly grew to appreciate him as a player. And going into the Nigeria game, I was under the assumption that Karasu was going to be just as dominant as he was in the PXG game, and I was wrong. People always clown on Hyori for falling off, but Karasu didn't do that much better in this game. To highlight some of his better feats from this game, he was able to read and intercept Kuso's pass to Onazi, which sparked the link-ups with Chigiri, Bachira, and Isagi, which then led to the first goal taking place. Even earlier in the game, Karasu was able to retrieve the loose ball from Niko's block and kickstart BLUELOCK counter with Hyori and Rin. He also linked up with Isagi towards the final goal, but didn't really have that much of a presence. Other than that, Karasu didn't really do that much during the Nigeria game. Despite being labeled as the same caliber as Isagi and Aiku as it relates to controlling BLUELOCK's attacking plays, Reo, in my opinion, was more influential in the midfield. And before I say this, you Hiori fans need to hop off the hate for this character, because I'm going to say something that's going to trigger you a little bit. Kuso and Karasu had several matchups during this game where Karasu lost nearly every single one. Kuso was able to successfully send passes to Onazi despite Karasu's pressure on numerous occasions, and he was even able to steal the ball from Karasu and dribble around him and Reo during his awakening. Hell, even against Bello, the worst player of the core 4 on the Nigerian team, Karasu, while better than him, couldn't stop Bello from making that pass to Sadiq to continue the play. He was overall a very dominating force during the PXG game, but this game was really not a reflection of it. While I do mention these negative things, I think his contribution to the first goal and his opening counterattack play with Rin and Hyori kind of outweighed the negatives here, so he did increase a little bit. Based on everything, I do believe that Karasu's value had increased from 55 million to 56 million. Speaking on Hyori, because we just talked about him a little bit ago when it related to underwhelming performances, let's speak on him now. So let's talk about Hyori. I'm sure this won't come as a surprise for what I'm about to say, but Hyori has significantly fallen off. And it pains me to say this because I really like Hyori's character. He was going shot for shot with Charles and Karasu in the PXG game in terms of playmaking capabilities and was a very key player in the Ubers game, leading to Bayern München winning. And now he's really just a subpar Sai who's waiting to get benched once he returns. But as it relates to this game, let's go over all of Hyori's performances in this match. He made a pass in the opening chapter. Is that it? No, because he also took a shot and got blocked by the Nigerian keeper. Okay, now that's it. And I gotta say, I'm kind of disappointed in you, Hyori. I was of the belief that you were going to cook so hard with Isagi in the U20 World Cup until Sai showed up. And now it's like you're just begging to be replaced. When it comes to being honest about Hyori's performances, though, it's not like he did bad. It's that he didn't do a lot. When it came to that pass from Karasu in the relay to Rin, Hyori managed to cross the ball and made a successful link-up. In terms of that, he did his job and he did it well there. As for his shot against the keeper, yeah, I got no defense for him here. Why would you take the shot? I thought you wanted to be a playmaker who creates the best striker. Why the hell are you taking this shot? But what a lot of people don't really realize about Hyori is that he ghosted after those two plays. Those two performances were all he did during that game. And I don't think it's really a negative to him that he only had those two performances. If he was involved in a lot of them and he did bad, yeah, I understand. But he only showed up for those two moments. It's kind of balancing out. One good, one bad. It's a neutral party. Alongside Chigiri, he was swapped off the pitch with only 15 minutes left in the half or so. And I can't really critique him on that because I'd be forced to slander my GOAT, and I am not going to be doing that. Because of that, I believe that Hyori's value will have decreased from 39 million to 38 million. Now, speaking on my GOAT, it's about time we talk about him. So let's talk about Chigiri Hyoma. When it comes to Chigiri's performances, he's kind of in the same realm as Hyori. Both players didn't really do very much, and where they did contribute, they were kind of decent. Chigiri's feats consist of an opening blitz and cross to Isagi in chapter 314 with some pressure with Reo in the midfield. Aside from that, he didn't really do that much. What I do think does well for Chigiri here as it relates to his value is his placement as a crosser during this game. I've been very opposed to Chigiri playing on the right side as opposed to the left like he was trained to in the new Egoist League. But in terms of his value, this position kind of did him justice. He expanded his arsenal to the world by showing that he can be used as a crosser, while the NEL highlighted his effectiveness as a goal scorer. I do think that because of this, it does bring his value up a little bit. As for his other involvements, he takes a shot that gets blocked by Onazi, which I don't think is as bad as Hyori's, which this isn't just the bias talking, but you have the ace of the Nigerian team blocking your shot versus a mid-ass keeper. Not in the same realm. Like I mentioned, Chigiri was also pressed in the midfield with Reo, but that wasn't really all that interesting if I'm being honest. And while you might think it's kind of stupid, I do think that a small increase to his value came from Reo's goal. Reo was copying Chigiri's own technique, and the announcers called out to it, which could potentially highlight the skill of this technique. By that logic, you're kind of saying that if Reo was able to score this goal with Chigiri's technique, that the original should be able to as well. Because of these feats, I think that Chigiri's value increased from 90 million to 91.5 million. Let's get into our defensive line though real quick, starting with BLUELOCK Japan's captain, that being Oliver Aiku. When it relates to Aiku's performances, I think that he did pretty solid. As a captain in the final wall, he was an active presser on defense, being involved in nearly every defensive play to some capacity. He was consistent in feeding the ball to the front line through players like Isagi or Karasu, winning loose balls through aerial battles. His best feat though was stopping Onazi's awakening, blocking the final shot, and stopping him from scoring. And while this is great, there is something that you need to realize. Whenever Aiku matched up against Onazi, excluding that final play, he never really won. Every time Onazi appeared and attempted to shoot, even when assisted by other defenders, he was still able to successfully shoot the ball past Aiku's blocks. Seriously, excluding that final block, Onazi shot past Aiku every single time. And sure, you can try and argue that it was part of BLUELOCK's plan to let Onazi continuously shoot, but if you could stop him, why wouldn't you? He was also outplayed by Onazi previously, seen with him faking his scoring attempt, allowing for Kuso to take the shot instead, which, come on man, you have metavision, and you're telling me Onazi was able to see into a farther future than you can? Kinda crazy. But overall, I think Aiku's feats were consistent with plays that he showed previously, so I don't think he's decreasing at all. When it relates to Aiku, based on his performances, I believe that his value is increasing from 60 million to 65 million. Going into another defender, since we just talked about Aiku, let's talk about his mini version, that being Ikki Niko. Now, Niko is a lot like Rin in relation to performances, just kind of switch the half. He was an incredibly prominent player in the first half of the game, to the point where I was considering him as one of the most valuable players during this match. At least, that was until the second half. During the opening chapter, Niko was the one who blocked a shot from an unawakened Onazi, a shot that went through both the blocks of Aryu and Aiku. This play had stopped Nigeria's assault, which led to BLUELOCK's first opening counter. A few chapters later, he managed to snatch the ball away from Kuso and actually overpowered him to keep possession. Niko's entire 50-day training after the NEL was just weightlifting and steroid injections, because he was holding Kuso off like it was no issue. He then managed to feed a long ball to Reo to spark BLUELOCK's second counter, which then led to a goal by Reo. And if you don't count Bachira or Reo here, Niko was the last one to touch the ball in that play. But after these moments, Niko's presence on the pitch really dies down, as players like Aryu and Aiku take the spotlight on defense. During the second half, he was mostly seen in the background marking other offensive players like Sadiq, so while he wasn't in the spotlight, he was being consistent with his defensive presence. Because of this, based on the performances, I believe that Niko's value should have increased from 40 million to 45 million. But as for the last of our center backs, let's talk about the tallest guy on BLUELOCK Japan, that being Aryu Jyubei. When it relates to Aryu's performances in this game, I'm not entirely sure how I should feel. His opening play was very impressive, using his judo techniques to match Onazi's movements and keep him from advancing forward. And like I just mentioned with Niko, it was actually Aryu who forced the crazy and bad pass out of Onazi, which led to Niko stealing it. But when you look at the stuff that Aryu did during this game, he wasn't really doing all that much in terms of positive involvement. In almost every interaction on defense, he is either failing to defend or is failing to intercept passes. With Kuso, nearly every single pass just flies right past Aryu. I mean, this guy is legit 6'5". He's barely under the requirement to enter the NBA, and he's letting every aerial pass just fly by him. And just like with Aiku, he was continuously letting himself get beat by Onazi when it came to defense versus offense. You can say it was part of the plan, but come on, just stop him if you can. Every time we see Aryu aside from that opening play, he's not really contributing much positively to their plays. Because of this and the performances by Aryu, I believe that his value should decrease from 45 million to 43 million. But now let's talk about BLUELOCK's guardian and the only good goalkeeper in the series, that being Gin Gagamaru. Gagamaru is a very hard character to speak on for these kinds of things, since he's the only goalkeeper in the series that has any kind of worth. Not only that, but the mangaka seems to only want to give Gagamaru one save per game, so his moments are kinda slim. Gagamaru's only real main feat this game was blocking an unawakened Onazi shot going into the second half. This led to BLUELOCK keeping the score at 0 for the entire first half and simultaneously the entire game, which is something of worth because Gagamaru achieved his first clean sheet of the series. My goat Gagamaru shall not be slandered because bro did his duty. Because of this, I believe that his value should increase from 50 million to 52 million. But with us covering a lot of the starters for this game, let's talk about the substitutions, with the first one being Raichi Jingo. Now, Raichi is a very hard character to make a case for this kind of video because he wasn't on the pitch for very long. Being subbed into the game with Kurona with only 15 minutes left, he didn't have a lot of time to show off his improvements from his 50-day training. What we do know is that Raichi was able to work alongside Kurona to snatch the ball away from Onazi going into the restart. But aside from that, Raichi doesn't really do all that much else. He involves himself in the matchup with Kuso during his awakening, where a shoulder charge attempted to limit his movements. However, this didn't stop Kuso from passing despite this mark, setting Onazi up for a final shot. That's really about all it. He kept up his physical dominance in the midfield from the Ubers and PXG games, he just didn't get enough time to show his worth. Because of this, I believe that Raichi's value would increase from 27 million to 27.5 million. For the other of the two subs, we got the braided chomp chomp man of Blue Lock. Let's talk about Kurona Ranze. Kurona is honestly one of my favorite characters in the series and is a fan favorite amongst the community. And as for his performances in this game, he was pretty solid. Like I mentioned with Raichi, their opening play was a team up between these subs, resulting in Onazi losing the ball and Isagi kickstarting Blue Lock's counter towards the end of the game. But the most impressive thing from this match was his clutch save towards the final few minutes. This play was crucial for Blue Lock keeping a clean sheet, since based on the placements of Obabonia and Bello, this would have been a goal if not for the GOAT. But also this play is significant for his value because, like Chigiri, Kurona had never really shown off these kinds of defensive plays. Working with Isagi in the NEL, Kurona was good at stealing loose balls and pressuring players, but also linking up for offensive plays using Planet Hotline. Sweeping and defensive plays like this are new for Kurona, highlighting his agility in a new light. The more diversity you can provide for what you can do with your weapons, the higher your value will likely increase, the same way it did for Chigiri. The only thing against Kurona for this match that's kind of a negative is just the amount of game time he had. Everything else, bro was straight cooking with helium. Because of this, I believe that Kurona's value should increase from 35 million to 39 million. But for the final character of this video, the MVP of this match, and the one that you guys have probably been waiting on for this video, let's talk about the highlighted dribbler of Blue Lock, that being Meguru Bachira. Bachira was undeniably the most valuable player during the Nigeria game. Not only did he manage to score the opening goal against Nigeria, a goal that was scored in 3 minutes and 40 seconds, being the fastest goal in a regulation game that we've seen since Sai's in the Japan U20 match, but he also managed to get 3 different assists during this game. When it comes to Bachira, he was the most dominating player on this pitch, contributing to literally every single offensive play that Blue Lock had initiated. His involvement in this game was literally one of his best in the entire series, and his placement as the MVP is not debatable. His dribbling and extortion of Rin and Isagi led to a goal. His involvement with Reo copying him, led to a goal. His pass to Isagi, which got stolen by Rin, led to a goal. And Bachira's final pass to Isagi let him score the final goal, scoring a scissor kick volley. Bachira's performances in this game on the world stage were absolutely incredible. While he did get beat by Bello and Kuso a few times during some points of this game, it doesn't outweigh the positives that he brought for this team. Because of this, I believe that Bachira's value has increased from 120 million to 165 million. And with that, those were just my predictions for the values of the Blue Lockers after the Nigeria game. Now, obviously, this was just my opinion, but I did run this through other creators like Raven, Onyx, and Ungloop on TikTok, so if you disagree with what I said in this video, you can, but also blame them. I plan to do this kind of video for every match of the U20 World Cup, so I hope you guys are excited for this new series. But aside from that, I hope you guys did enjoy this video and will continue to enjoy it in the future. I just want to leave a final reminder to join my Discord server if you're ever interested in getting any more involved with our amazing community. As for the questions of the video though, what bid value do you think should be adjusted? Leave me your thoughts down below in the comment section. And like always, thank you all so much for watching. Like and subscribe to see more awesome Blue Lock content just like this.